Red Bull lost in Monaco, as the eighth round of the 2024 F1 season saw an RB20 in trouble. Problems were already hinted at by the main figures, who, approaching the race weekend, had not hidden various concerns about the performance of the Austrian car on the streets of the Principality. In Monte Carlo, the most important factor for a car is traction, a fundamental area in which the Milton Keynes team excels. Nonetheless, the little flaw in the front end of the blue racing cars made everything tremendously complicated. Red Bull is no longer dominant in Formula One. The comfort zone is gone. For this reason, they have to work really hard to win, and in some circumstances, they don't even succeed. This is the competitive context we have observed in the latest rounds of the 2024 Formula One racing campaign. Max Verstappen says he's not worried and that what we are seeing are just simple lapses. Without a doubt, this could be true. After all, despite the problems, Max Verstappen's RB20 is still a super competitive car that performs very well. This is also thanks to the talent of its driver. The Dutchman now has a lot of experience in Formula One, almost a decade in the top category of motorsport, despite being only 26 years old. This know-how allows him, besides excelling in handling, to often find driving solutions when his car isn't at its best, is acting up, or isn't going where he wants. The example is Monte Carlo. He himself described the Red Bull as a kind of cart because in terms of suspension, the blue racing car struggled to tackle the curbs and couldn't exploit every square inch of the track. In Monaco, the center of pressure of the current Formula One cars shifts to the rear, an aspect that Red Bull struggles with. We have reiterated this several times. The front end weakens, the balance isn't precise, and the match of Pirelli tire operating temperatures between the two axles doesn't occur. On the contrary, Ferrari is comfortable in this situation. By putting more load on the rear, the SF24's rear end stabilizes, and the front end doesn't lose balance like the RB20S. At this moment, even McLaren is capable of beating the reigning world champions. They did it in Miami, and they came very close in Imola. Paul Monahan, Red Bull's chief track engineer, in a chat with the media in the Monaco pit lane, in front of the team's garage, confided that several updates are coming. This isn't merely a reaction to the value of the other teams, but the result of months of planned work. Without a doubt, these updates will significantly help the Austrian cars, and knowing the reactive capacity of the Milton Keynes technicians, we can expect important results. Measures that aim to re-establish a safety gap, even if smaller, to keep their opponents, Ferrari and McLaren, at bay. Helmut Marko, the head of Red Bull's driver development program, and an advisor to the Red Bull Racing F1 team, says a lot of things. It's his habit. He doesn't like staying away from the microphones. On some occasions, he gets carried away by pride, while on others, he seems more reasonable. We will remember his comments about the recent update on the RB20's floor, a modification that, according to him, was supposed to change things, and from which much was expected. In the end, it doesn't seem that the expectations were met. Furthermore, there's another issue, the simulator. The driver-in-the-loop software reproduces reality through a lot of inserted information, a hypothetical field that tries to simulate what happens on the racing track. If the correlation doesn't work, problems arise, as has been the case for Mercedes in the last few years. The lively old man talks about it and admits the issue for the Austrian side. This is because something isn't working properly in studying the different setup options on the drawing board, which are then chosen at the track to face the rest of the race weekend until the final tuning. This aspect is causing difficulties for Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, as well as for the Red Bull technicians and engineers. It's a thorny issue the team is working on these days. According to information reported by various news media outlets in Monaco, the championship-leading team is trying to correct this imperfect scenario that has misled the workgroup on several occasions in the last few races. In Formula One, every tiny detail makes a difference, and when such a context isn't under control, problems can spread widely. Therefore, there's some concern within the Austrian team, also in relation to the imminent upgrades, which, like the setup issues, could be affected in their assessment regarding proper validation on the track. We can't talk about a real alarm. However, a certain unease has been occupying the minds of Red Bull engineers for some time. A contrast between reality and the simulated field that is currently under study, because when optimizing the Formula One car becomes a problem, and in some cases like Miami, Imola, and Monaco, it doesn't work 100%, then the rivals, who are now very close, can even beat you. Moreover, the pressure increases, and driver errors are a normal consequence, just as happened to Max Verstappen in the final stages of the complicated qualifying session for the Monaco Grand Prix on the streets of Monte Carlo. The Dutchman struggled, and in order to compensate for this lack of performance, he was forced to rely entirely on his talent. Unfortunately for Red Bull, the Dutchman's remarkable skills were not enough to secure pole position and consequently an easy victory. On the contrary, the difficulty led him to make a mistake, so much so that in Q3 his best time was only good enough for 6th place, behind the two Ferrari cars, the McLaren car of Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, as well as George Russell's Mercedes. The comfort zone inhabited in the 2023 Formula One season no longer exists. Remedies are urgently needed in the form of updates to re-establish a gap over the competition, which now seems almost non-existent. We have discussed this many times during our team updates analyses. There is a vast difference between bringing an upgrade package to the track and the resulting lap times. Various solutions are developed in computational fluid dynamics tools, seeking settings that can be innovative. This is the creative part. Then they must be tested in the wind tunnel, which constitutes the second check, until they reach track testing. Within this scenario, it should be remembered that the work done can yield results that fall short of expectations or, in some cases, be practically worthless. The software and simulation methods replicate reality but naturally have limitations. They are mathematical models that try to represent something real and continuous. For example, when the modified car goes down, you can notice that, with a certain steering angle, the fluid mass flowing over some surfaces of the car stalls and consequently produces harmful instability in certain conditions. There can be infinite problems, which is why it is useless to estimate the tenths gained with a certain upgrade. Even the teams don't know for sure. For this very simple reason, very often, when the technicians make changes to the setup based on the driver's indications, the car reacts as desired. Other teams are also currently able to do the same, extracting all the potential from their car thanks to the track setup. The target is to build the lap in different ways with varying levels of downforce and suspension settings. As Mattia Binotto would put it, it's just a matter of understanding which combination best suits the mechanical vehicle and then implementing it. In this regard, a strong response is expected next week at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in the Canadian Grand Prix, a track that once again could seriously challenge Red Bull. The historic 81-year-old advisor from Austria reveals this, echoing his worried statements made approaching the Grand Prix on the streets of the Principality. There is optimism about solving the problems because the team's extensive experience should make a difference. We just have to wait to see if the problems will continue to trouble or will finally be resolved.